All good.
All right, so we'll have you introduce yourself, please.
I'm Sean McCarthy, and I'm the Chief Engineer of Innovation and Technology at Hemlo.
Okay. So we're going to be talking about digital task assignment and coordination,
Okay,
otherwise known as DTAC.
detail.
Why don't we start off with you telling us a little bit about what DTAC is?
DTAC is a system for categorizing and cataloging all of the various plans that go into the underground mine plan, getting them all into one place so that the entire mine is following one plan, and coordinating those tasks and resources to a common goal.
Why is this important?
Well, we have a unique opportunity at Hemlo to expand the mine. We have a number of studies going on in the engineering department and in geology as well. We've got a lot of drills operating. But one of the things we do have to do in order to make those things come to fruition is get some better control over our underground mining costs and also over our production rate.
And why is that important? Why is that last part important to the expansion of the mine? Getting the costs down.
Well, if you look at the grade tonnage curve on the material that we have at Hemlo, there's a lot of material as you lower your cutoff grade. So if you can lower your mining cost, then you lower your cutoff grade and you bring a lot more material into the plan. You know, Hemlo's a very mature mine. It has a large fixed infrastructure, big huge shaft, big crushers and belts. Has a lot of material that's underutilized. In its heyday, it did around 2 million tons a year of ore from underground. Now we're doing 1 million. So we're doing about half. And all of those fixed costs to run the shaft, to keep the fans going, to heat the air in wintertime, they keep going no matter how many tons you produce. So at half the productive capacity, those fixed costs get spread over only half as many tons. So if we can move more tons with the same number of people, the same amount of equipment, and the same fixed infrastructure, the unit costs go down, our cutoff grade goes down, lower grade stopes become economical.
Okay. Just explain cutoff grade to me.
So cutoff grade is the grade of ore at which you break even on that ton. So when your direct operating costs are equal to your revenue from that ton.
Okay. So if I'm understanding this, then the cutoff grade means that this is ore that has a lower percentage of what you're after, gold, in it?
Sure. So the grade is the quantity of valuable material in the rock. So if we use as an example 3 grams per ton as a cutoff grade, so that would mean that at 3 grams, you're getting exactly as much money back as you put into that ton to get it out of the ground. So if that rock is at 2.9 grams per ton, you're going to lose money on that ton. And if it's 3.1 grams per ton, you're going to make additional revenue equivalent to that 0.1 gram per ton that's above the cutoff grade. That's how much additional profit you would make off of that ton.
Okay. So the purpose of something like DTAC is to help to, I guess, drive efficiencies so that you can get your production costs down and make going after that other ore a more sustainable prospect, right?
Yes. When
I'm trying to get you to explain it to me. and we'll figure out who the audience is afterwards. So the simplest explanation.
Yeah.
The way you explained it in the meeting with the general foreman is kind of what I'm trying to get you to. And I'm sorry if it seems like I'm asking you the same question over again. As you know, like because you had we're at a 3 to get to a 2.5 kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Okay.
So our cutoff grade at Hemlo right now at the Williams Underground is about 3 grams per ton.
Okay.
And if you say a gram of gold is worth about $50 Canadian, then every $5 you take off your operating cost, you reduce your cutoff grade by 0.1 grams per ton. And if you look at a cutoff grade of 2.5 grams per ton versus 3, you almost double the amount of material that's available to mine.
So that will extend the mine life.
Yes, there's a non-linear relationship between the cutoff grade and the mining rate. So as you increase your mining rate, your cutoff grade goes down at a rate that increases the amount of material faster than you're increasing the mining rate. So your mine life extends.
So people who are concerned about maybe the ability to take more ore out faster shouldn't necessarily be concerned, because it's actually the inverse. So they may think that taking that ore out more quickly means you're going to decrease the mine life because you're
Yes.
you're mining it out.
Right. And at a lot of mines, it is true that the faster you mine the ore, the shorter the mine lasts, because they have very sharp, distinct contracts between ore and waste. It's either ore or it isn't. And the faster you mine it, the quicker it's gone. But at a lot of other ore bodies, and Hemlo's a really good example, you have a less distinct boundary between ore and waste. And so as you increase your mining rate, you actually extend the mine life because you lower your mining costs.
Okay. So digital task assignment and coordination, or DTAC, is changing the Hemlo mine. How exactly? Right now it's more of a manual operation. Is this going to make it more of a technical operation? What is the big change that's coming with DTAC that might be, what's the word I'm looking for? May cause some upheaval, for the people who are currently doing the work.
Well, one of the biggest changes with DTAC is that production information will be relayed into the system as it happens, and tasks will be assigned on a live basis, and the plan will be adjusted on a live basis. So I guess one of the biggest changes for supervisors will be they won't be chasing tons and chasing metrics and trying to track down figures and doing a lot of bookkeeping. They're going to be spending more of their time focused on job observations, coaching, safety discussions, and things where they have an opportunity to add more value to the crew.
That sounds good, and I'm sure they're going to welcome that kind of a change. What about adapting to new technology? Tell me about that. Is there new technology that may be difficult for people to adapt to or to learn?
There will be new technology that we are going to be adopting and that people will have to adapt to. And one of our main goals in developing this system is to make sure that we have a very user-friendly interface. We're not trying to make some kind of system that shows people how smart we are by programming this incredibly complex system that no one can use. Our goal is to make a system that's intuitively obvious to use.
Okay.
When you look at the way people use iPad applications for a lot of things that they do, the reason the uptake on those applications is so rapid is because the interface is very simple and the features are obvious to the task that they want to use the application for. And our goal is to replicate that with this system so that when you're using the iPad to help you do your tasks during the day, the way that you use it becomes intuitively obvious.
What is the human element that's going to remain? I mean, when you've got all this data and you have all this information to work with, and you've got a plan that is in a large sort of computer or technical system, digitized system, what's the human element that remains?
Well, I like fishing. And when I go fishing, I have a fish finder on the boat, and I use that to help me fish. And I have a GPS that I use. And both of those things help me when I'm fishing. But I'm still fishing. When I'm going fishing, I'm still going fishing. I'm still doing the same thing, but I have a couple of extra tools to help me do it a little bit better.
And you still have to understand that it's better to fish where there's structure, and you still have to, you still have to understand how to bait a hook, those kinds of things.
Yeah, that's right. If I can spend as much money as I want on the fanciest, best fish finder and the best GPS, and I can get a really high dollar rod and reel and lures, but if my dad didn't teach me how to fish, I wouldn't be able to fish. And it's still always going to be the case that someone who knows how to fish is going to fish better without a fish finder than someone who doesn't know how to fish can fish with a fish finder. That element remains.
That's awesome. I love that. Part of DTAC is an asset management system, right?
Correct.
Okay. Explain to me what the benefits are to asset. Well, actually, first explain to me what does asset management mean exactly?
Asset management or asset tracking?
Sorry, asset.
What do we want to?
What do we want to call it?
Well, they're two separate things.
Yes.
Right. So asset tracking is knowing where all of your assets are.
Okay.
And asset management would be getting all of the information from those assets into the system.
Okay. So asset tracking and asset management are two parts of DTAC. They go together, but what is the relationship between the two? Which comes first, and how are they different?
Well, asset tracking and asset management are two related elements in the system. Asset tracking provides you with spatial location of assets, either mobile assets or movable assets. And a mobile asset would be an asset that tends to move around all the time, like a piece of mobile equipment. And a movable asset would be one that tends to stay where it is usually, but moves occasionally, and is then prone to getting lost because it does move infrequently. People have difficulty tracking the moves. Whereas asset management is getting the live information from the equipment to maintenance.
Okay.
So it's tracking engine utilization, percussive hours, condition monitoring on the equipment.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about asset tracking. You were talking about equipment, but asset tracking also applies to people.
For sure.
The miners that are underground. What are some of the benefits then of this asset tracking where it pertains to people?
Well, with asset tracking, you have to remember that people are your best asset, and you want to know where they are too, and you have a much higher responsibility to protect them than you do your equipment. And part of protecting people in an underground mine is knowing where they are when something goes wrong. When we drop stench at Williams right now, it can take an hour, and I've seen it take up to 2 hours before we actually know where everybody is. And when there's an emergency, a lot can go wrong in 2 hours. And if you're the one who's hurt, you want to know that people know where you are and can come and find you. And so to me, that type of connectivity is a regular expectation that we have in our society today. I expect that if I get hurt, I can dial 911. If I get in a car accident, someone driving by can dial 911. I should think that I should have the same protection at work.
How does it improve work? So we've talked about safety, so that's great, but these kinds of situations happen relatively infrequently. frequently.
They do.
So how does it, so that can't be the only reason. What about how does it improve work? How does it improve efficiency? How is it going to be better for the people who are underground, who are the assets being tracked?
Well, let's see. I think I gotta figure out what it is I'm trying to say here. We have a lot of situations in the underground where multiple crews get sent to the same work heading because their supervisors don't know that another supervisor sent someone there. So usually all the plan A assignments are coordinated at the start of the shift. So you don't have different people being sent to the same work area, but it's difficult to coordinate all of the plan B activities that people have set up. So you get two crews, they both are on their plan B, they wind up in the same heading and they can't, one of them has to get reassigned. That can be very frustrating. Whereas if you know that another crew has been assigned to that heading, you're one step ahead of the game. You don't have to go there and find it out. You can find it out elsewhere.
And you mentioned that you're going to be, because you are tracking also equipment, so obviously if there's a piece of equipment you need to do a job, it's helpful to be able to find it. Right?
It can be very frustrating to look for equipment at the start of the shift, or even worse, to then eventually find it and then realize that it's down. So knowing where the equipment is and what condition it's in at the start of the shift is critical to getting your day off to a decent start.
Can you tie the asset tracking into the ventilation and how maybe it can help improve the use of ventilation and that kind of thing underground by knowing where people are? I don't know if that's a big benefit that you guys are seeking to achieve here, but I understand that there may be some benefits to knowing or being able to ensure that you're providing enough ventilation in places where a lot of people are working or a lot of equipment might be being utilized.
As the mine moves deeper and further away from the shaft, we end up having to send our ventilating air through a number of vent loops out to that west end. And so you wind up with a lot of congestion and a lot of equipment competing for that ventilating air. And the system we use to control it now is a tag board system where equipment operators tag their equipment into a zone when they enter, tag it out when they leave, and they keep track of how many CFM are in that loop. But with asset tracking, you know exactly how much equipment is in a zone, what the total CFM requirement is for all of that equipment, whether the equipment is running or not running. And so you can put up alarms on a zone, do not enter, wait for another piece of equipment to come out. And you get away from that manual tag board system.
We're gonna want to ask some of the questions that came up from the general foreman today too, so that we can get some of your answers, whether we use it for this or just to actually get the answers to document it properly.
Sure.
That it may help. So we may do some of that too. I don't know if that's what Sean's looking for right now, but
Yeah.
or are you trying to get him to talk about some of the key messages in a way that
Well, kind of.
it's covered the most of
We've
it.
hit a lot of those actually.
What about, why don't you talk about the potential to kind of reduce the paperwork and things like that for supervisors by, being able to, I mean, you sort of hinted at it before, but, there's a possibility that, or not a possibility, it's very likely that by using the DTAC system and getting information on a real-time basis, that it will reduce the amount of paperwork and time spent at shift change between supervisors sharing information and recording information, that kind of thing. Can you talk a little bit about how that's going to help?
Yes, right now the supervisors spend a lot of time at the end of the shift collecting all of the shift data, recording it in the logs, and getting it into a form that's easily passed on to their cross shift that's coming on for the next shift. And we have made some improvements there over the last couple of years with some spreadsheets and some other things to help make it a little bit digital. But it's still a process of manually collecting all that data and then keying it in. With the DTAC system, we're going to have that information entered at the machine level, and then it will be summed up for the shift. So the information that the shifter is now focusing on, passing on to his oncoming cross shift, will be safety concerns, hazards that the oncoming shift boss has to know about, those sorts of things, as opposed to just bucket tallies and truck counts and meters and all that kind of stuff.
Great. So what's that going to do for the shifters in terms of time and savings in terms of their time and effort in that area?
I think that allows the shifters to provide a more quality pass on to the oncoming supervisor, because they're passing on their actual concerns rather than just passing on a bunch of production data.
Good.
How does DTAC help with prioritizing jobs? We talked about a plan. So, what levels of planning are there? And I guess I think one of the concerns we heard from the general foreman today, and one that we talked about, was that they would be overwhelmed with information, too much information, and that it would be harder to make decisions because there's too much information. So how do we get around that? How do we manage the information so that it's in more moderate chunks and they're able to work with it? How's that going to happen?
Well, we have a number of different plans that I don't want to say this. Starting over.
Yeah.
So there are at least 3 plans that go into running the mine on a shift by shift basis. There's a plan that comes from engineering, which has the production plan, the development plan, all of the physicals associated with it, and it comes in a Gantt schedule. Then there's a plan in Visia, which is the maintenance plan. And then each general foreman has a list of jobs that he needs to get done in his area that forms his own plan. And there's no single system that combines all of those into one overall plan for the entire mine. And part of DTAC is building that integrated plan for the mine. So we take the engineering plan, we take the maintenance plan, we take all of the general foreman's plans, and we build those into one single plan. And on the surface, it looks like a big, huge overload of information that would be difficult to manage. So the way we address that is with a control room operator. So the control room operator sees that large overall plan. The supervisors only have to manage their piece of that plan. They manage their piece of the plan and their resources. They still assign their resources to the plan. They still control their execution of that plan. But in the background, at the control room level, that plan is a piece of a larger plan now.
So who prioritizes what needs to be, what part of that plan needs to be done, say, first? I guess what I'm trying to figure out is there was one of the key messages that was helps prioritize jobs and know what we're doing well in advance. When one task is done, nobody's waiting or wondering what the next one should be. So that coordination piece is kind of what I'm trying to get at. So how do I phrase the question? How does DTAC improve coordination of the plan in order, and in prioritizing the tasks that need to be done?
Well, there can be only one plan. Can't have any number of plans. So the priorities have to be set at the level of the overall plan. So as the plan may have to shift during the execution of it, those changes can be prioritized by the control room operator. So if a supervisor needs to make a change on the fly to the plan, he can simply call up the control room operator, let them know he needs to make a plan, and off he goes. If that plan is going to cause some interference to a priority item, he'll get that feedback from the control room operator.
What about when, if a task is completed and the assignment of the next task, can you explain how that happens today?
Okay.
And, how that may change in the future?
Today, a miner goes underground with a line out for the shift. And he knows what his tasks are through that shift. And he'll also have some plan B tasks in case he runs into a problem. And partway through the shift, his supervisor will see him, meet with him, and may change some of those assignments depending on what's gone on during that day. With DTAC, the miner will be assigned his line out. When he completes his first task and he enters task complete on his tablet, he'll get a validation of the assignment of his next task. And he might get a different task assigned depending on what's gone on elsewhere in the mine. So, the classic example is, you have a jumbo driller and he's drilling around, and that's where he was sent, and he knows when he's done that, he has to move the jumbo to another heading to drill there. He finishes his round, he trams his jumbo 4 or 5 levels, he gets to the heading he was supposed to go to, and he realizes there's a bolter broken down in the heading. So the round's not bolted, there's a piece of broken down equipment there, and he trammed 4 levels for nothing. With DTAC, when he's done drilling his heading, he says he's done, the control room operator will already have known that the bolter's broken down, will already have dispatched a mechanic, and will already have assigned what that second task will be for that jumbo operator. So when he hits done, he'll go to a certain heading, but it won't be the one with the broken down bolter, it'll be a different heading.
So what's that going to result in for the miner themselves and for the mine as a whole?
It'll result in increased efficiencies and a lot less frustration.
Fewer delays, right?
Fewer
That's
delays.
The big thing, I think.
Fewer delays.
That's what I want to get out is.
The biggest complaint that I hear from guys underground are delays, problems with the plan, and problems with not knowing
Try that again, because that was a good.
I am. So I just want to figure out what that is.
What that other thing
So,
is.
Problems with the plan.
Delays.
Okay, yes. So the biggest complaints that I get from guys underground are delays, problems with the plan, and getting underground and finding out that the situation isn't what you were lined out with. And DTAC is being set up to address all of those problems.
So.
I think we've got everything.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, okay, here's the classic question. And as a public relations person, when I'm advising my executives who are across the table from reporters, when this question gets asked, I always say, no, you don't have anything to add. But do you have anything to add? Is there anything that you think we've missed? Any key bit of information about DTAC that you would have liked us to ask that I wasn't smart enough to ask you today?
No.
Fantastic. All right.
If I think of something, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Were there any other questions that came up today?
I'm looking at the GS, you know, I mean, I don't want to go into those sort of, well, actually, because it is a concern. So here's a question. When we're talking about the people aspect of the asset tracking, is DTAC or asset tracking something that can be used as a punitive measure, or as a, you know, is there any concern that it means Big Brother is watching, or that, you know, that the purpose of this is to, you know, to basically spy on them?
It's been my experience in 30 years of mining that supervisors don't have time to spy on employees. So you might think that, oh, this will have this Big Brother system and we'll have someone to sit there and watch what everybody's doing. There's no one who has time to just sit there and watch this machine.
Okay, I like that answer. Now let's try it differently, because how about, does DTAC necessarily identify specific individuals when they're underground, or is it more a system of just knowing that there is a person there?
Well, there are two layers to the personnel tracking. So the layer one is an anonymous layer. It shows where there's a person, and it may also show some of their qualifications that might be specific. If they're qualified in first aid, if they're on the mine rescue team, those sorts of things that you might want to know. The underlying layer, where the tag is associated with a person's name, can't be accessed except by special request from the superintendent.
Okay, so
I was talking.
That's
to
not
him about-
necessarily the way it's going to roll
Yeah.
out, though.
Okay,
That's,
I know
yeah,
that.
I don't know.
I know that, but because this is not going to it's not going to be necessarily one big long interview.
Mm-hmm.
We have two answers, or we use it or we don't use it at all.
Mm-hmm.
I just, you know, if they decide that that's how we're going to work it, yeah, we have that answer.
But we will be working it with that public anonymous layer
some level of
at
anonymity.
some level of
yeah.
anonymity.
Mhm.
It's just who do you say has the power and authority to drill down, right?
Right.
And to me, it's in the supervisory stream.
Right.
So in the supervisory stream, people can drill down, but outside the supervisory stream, people can't drill down.
Mm-hmm. I liked your first answer too. I mean, it's intuitive for me that, you know, as I was actually looking at the Q&As, I almost answered the question that way, like, who the hell's got time
Yeah.
to worry about whether Bob spent an extra 15 minutes and,
Yeah.
you know, like, I mean,
And you know, no one's going to get fired because they spent an extra 15 minutes in the refuge station. If someone spends too much time in the refuge station every shift, then it's a systematic problem that the supervisor has to deal with. But that's a problem the supervisor can identify without this system. If someone is habitually spending time not working, the supervisor knows it already.
right, absolutely. Okay. Like I said, I don't even know that. I mean, it's a question that's come up several times in
Yeah, but he
several
gave some good
ways.
answers too, even
Well,
just to address it in the Q&A, right?
Yeah.
Like, so whether we use this as video or we use
Yeah.
parts of what he said to answer
Right.
that Q&A to give to the supervisors and the GFs to communicate, right? So that they have a number of different ways they can sort of respond to that consistently. You know, even though there's a couple different tweaks to it, you know, they're all acceptable answers that they could.
I have one more.
Oh,
Sorry. Okay, so you recall that the GF seemed to respond pretty well. That there was that piece you were talking about. I didn't really understand that part, but we were talking about Deswick Ops and how you could build a better plan because you were using the same system from ops to planning. I don't know if I captured that correctly, but is there more continuity possible through DTAC? Is that
There's a lot more continuity in the plan with Deswick Ops. So the mine plan and engineering is made with Deswick CAD and Deswick Scheduler. So there's a direct import from the mine planning software into the scheduling software that's going to be used for shift scheduling. Right now, once the schedule gets down to about a 2-week window, it gets very loose, and it's mostly just given to the general foreman to figure out and do the best they can with. With Deswick Ops, that schedule will be taken down to a shift level.
so they liked that? They seemed to. I saw a lot of nodding going on. There was something about that appealed to them.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think the piece that appeals to them is having a prepared plan that goes down to the shift level.
Okay, so it's not just left on them to kind of like.
Right now, they get a bunch of prints, they get some spreadsheet printouts, and they get to have fun figuring this out. With a little bit of help from the senior engineers. But really, it's up to them to work through a lot of those conflicts. And a lot of times, they only have their plan. They don't have the maintenance plan when they're trying to figure out how they're going to get this done. So having the maintenance plan, the production plan, the development plan, all those things living in the same place will allow for much better coordination for site resources.
So just to wrap this up, just to get one last statement from you, if you can, if it works, just you like to end on a positive, if you can, in an interview type thing, depending on how we cut it together. Would you say that, change can be disruptive, and learning new ways of doing things can be a challenge? But is this going to be better for everybody? Is this going to be a positive change?
I think this is going to be a positive change for everybody. It's going to extend the mine life. It's going to be good for the town. It's going to be good for everybody. It is. So, it is a good change. It'll be good for the town. It'll be good for the employees. It'll be good for the company. And change can be difficult, but we take on change all the time as long as we can see the benefit of it. If we can see the benefit, we grab up change really quickly. If we can't see the benefit, then we try to put off change as long as we can. And right now, we have a great opportunity to extend the mine life, but we have to take that opportunity. We have to seize it. And this is our chance.
Cool.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good stuff.
I'm going to let
Great.
you hit that.
Yep.